Hey, this is Kevin McGough. I'm here with the fabulous, the one and only Mr. Eddie B. Eddie B, I think it's time for your life story. A lot of people know you, but they don't really know you like I know you. So why don't you tell me a little bit about where you started, when you got into music, because that's really what you're mostly known for, other than trials and tribulations, why we go fishing. But tell us about your life, Eddie B. This will be part one. We'll do a few of these.
Well, seeing as this is all about what is a big part of me, the music, I wasn't old when I heard my first black record, which was a song called G by the Crows. And I can remember saying to my cousin Anita, "What is that?" And she goes, "That's a rhythm and blues song. That's real big and real popular." So I paid pretty much close attention.
What year was that, Eddie B?
That was like 1954.
So that was just out.
I was like 10.
That was a new record?
Yeah, it was out right at that time.
What were you listening to prior to that? Do you remember?
Not really anything. I was 10.
You were 10.
You know, right. So what was I listening to?
Whatever was on the radio.
I was listening to Mrs. B. and she was more of a legend than I'll ever be.
Absolutely. Especially the sandwiches.
So that was my little introduction to music. And every time I would ask somebody, or my cousin Anita, or one of her girlfriends, "What is that song?" It was always a black record. It was always a song that was done by a black vocal group.
So like Rock Around the Clock or any of that popular stuff didn't mean anything to you?
I didn't dislike it or hate it or anything, but the stuff that my ear and my heart gravitated towards was that group sound.
Oh, okay.
But I liked it, but I was 10. So, you know, as life went on, I kind of paid attention to what was being played on the radio. But I never really started buying records until, like, I'd say around 1963 or 4. I was listening to the radio, but I was listening to the black station in Boston, which at the time was WYLD. So naturally, they played all black music. And that's what I was really into because I loved the harmonies. And so I started buying albums, and I bought the Temptations album. I said to myself, well, let me get an album instead of a 45. I get to hear 10 or 12 songs instead of just 2. So I started buying albums. And I was buying the group stuff that was out at the time. But I wasn't buying 50s groups. I was buying the groups that were coming out with...
So new records.
With a new style of music that someone decided to adopt this word, soul. It kind of fit me. So that's what I was buying. It was mostly soul albums. And
how old were you at this time?
Now I'm like 19, 20. Okay. I got out of high school in 63. And I would go in the town every once in a while or whatever. And get an album. But I would buy the albums, listen to them pretty good, put it aside. I didn't really start paying heavily attention to black music until around 1970.
What changed?
And,
why?
I'll tell you exactly why. I found out about this club in Boston called the Sugar Shack. Greatest club ever in Boston. Not even close. So I started going there because my mom was friends with the lady next door, and her boyfriend ran the place with his brother, Rudy and Sticker Garino. And Rudy is still alive.
Yep.
Lives in Vegas. So he says, come down to the club anytime you want. Just walk down the stairs. So I went. And as I remember, the first group I saw, and I'd say it was like 70, no later than 71, with the 5 stair steps. And I was just like mesmerized. And that was a kid group, basically. They were a family of kids. But they had the great harmonies, and they could dance.
Was Ooh Child out? Or?
You know, I'm pretty sure it had just come out.
Okay. And that's why they were touring.
I wouldn't bet my life on that, but Sugar Shack was great. I really got my education there. There were no white acts there, which was right up my alley.
Ever.
They had...
Magnificent Men, ever?
No, the Men never played there, but I saw them once.
Oh, okay.
Story for another time, I guess.
Part 2.
But they had... probably be more than 2 parts to this story.
I think so.
Where was my train of thought here? Oh, you asked me if anybody white was there. I remember him. Big James Brown, and he used to imitate James Brown. He had the real high hair. And why can't I think of his name, Kevin?
I don't know.
But that's all right. I will remember his name at some point in time. And that was the only white act that I remember being there.
And that was, you were going how many times a week?
Well, when I first
At the beginning.
When I first started going, I'd go once or twice a week.
Yep.
You know.
Was it weekends,
And
Friday, Saturday?
that lasted for about 2 months.
Okay.
And then I literally was there. I was there every night of the week unless I was sick or away fishing in New Hampshire or Maine or something
That's
like
amazing.
that. You know. Yeah, I lived there. I used to get my mail there.
And you were the owner.
I really did live there.
Yeah. How many acts do you think you saw? Different acts. Different. How many years was it open? How many years was the club open?
The club was open like from, say, late 69, early 72, and I can never remember the exact date, but I'm pretty sure it closed in March of 1977. And the last group they had there was a Boston group called L.C. Smith and the Trends. And they weren't bad.
Yeah.
They were all right. I seen there were other Boston groups there too. Altogether, I mean, if I want to count male acts, and we didn't get a lot of female acts there, a lot of female singers, but every once in a while they would get a few. I saw Betty right there. She was there a few times and something like that. But I was paying very close attention to the group thing because that was my first love. But it didn't matter who was there. I was going to be there.
Was that the only club in Boston that had acts like that all the time?
No, you had a couple of other clubs in the hood. One was called Wayne's Lounge. They would get black acts once in a while. But they would get what was called the Chitlin Circuit acts.
Right.
Lesser
known.
The Shack, the Shack had really, I mean, Shylights, Delphonics.
Mainstream.
You know, they had the acts that meant something to me, that's for sure.
Right.
But I went to a couple of those clubs in the hood back in the day.
Sure you did.
There was another club called the Carousel Lounge.
If someone came to the Shack, they were there the whole week, right? It wasn't...
The whole week.
Yeah.
Every act that ever played the Sugar Shack started on a Monday and ended on a Sunday.
Which is impossible in today's world. Ever.
You
never do that.
If you had a club with an act there for 2 nights a week, that'd be something.
So
first of all, there's no club.
I'm trying to do the math. So if you went there almost every night for 7 years and there was acts 52 weeks a year,
yeah,
then you saw how many thousands of shows?
You know, if I really wanted to tally it up, or between the two of us tally it up, boy, that's a number I guess I'll have to come up with. I mean,
it's probably more than you think.
Yeah, you know,
if you think about it that way, it could be more.
I'm not saying that I've seen more live soul acts than anyone, but I may have.
You're in the running.
Because I really saw a lot of acts many times, and I saw a lot of great acts once or twice.
And who did you see the most?
I've seen the Temptations the most times.
How many times would that be?
106.
He's writing them down.
I just happen to remember. I mean,
106 times.
First time I ever saw them was in April of 1965 at, what's the Jewish school out in Western Part? Babson?
Yeah.
Babson.
Yeah, Babson.
Saw them at Babson. And the great girl group, the Chantels, Arlene Smith and the Chantels.
Oh, great.
Was that the Chantels? I may be wrong here now. No. No, I'm sorry. It was the Shirelles and the Nine Lords, which was a Boston group.
Yep.
who did a record as the Lords, but they were originally called the Nine Lords, and they opened up for the Temps. And that was the first time I saw them, and I see them a few more times after.
Couple.
Yeah.
Were there any acts that you needed to see there that like Sticker could never bring in, or they Ruby could never bring in?
Oh yeah. Well, you know, contrary to popular belief, they never had the Temptations.
Right.
Now, towards the end, they had Eddie Kendrick for a week, and they had David Ruffin for a week. But that was towards the end. That was like 75, 76. But they never had the Temps as a group, and they couldn't because they couldn't pay them.
Too expensive, yeah.
Never had Smokey Robinson in the Miracles as a group, you know. So there were a few groups.
Did the Dells go there?
The Dells played the Sugar Shack once a year, if not twice a year, for every year it was ever open.
Oh, okay. And
I've probably seen the Dells 40 or 50 times.
I was going to
Something
say,
like
who's
that.
the next? I would guess would be the Dells.
Yeah, there'd be maybe two handful of groups that I've seen 20, 25, 30, 35 times.
That's amazing.
Like Blue Magic and some,
Right.
you know, some of those
Blue
acts.
Notes, yeah.
You know, the Shy Lights. A lot of great guys I got to know in the groups. Melvin Franklin was actually kind of a little buddy of mine. He was a friend of mine. You know,
Right.
I got to spend some time with him a few times. I was presented an award once for the first Boston record pool party, and Kiss, the radio station Kiss, had their very, very first party at 15 Lansdowne Street, and they had the Temps for entertainment. So that was pretty cool for me.
That'll work.
And the Temps actually gave me an award.
So you talked about the record pool. When did you start DJing? When did that start?
Well, I mean, I actually started playing records
For people.
at people's houses, probably 1968.
So bring a bag of records and play kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would bring records. I did it for nothing. But sometimes I'd throw a can in front of me or a hat.
Right.
People would throw change in it. And whatever I got the next week, I'd go and buy some records
Right,
or whatever,
yeah,
you know.
right.
And
So where did that lead to you getting into like a nightclub as a DJ?
well, now you got to remember, I really cut my teeth on live acts. So when discos or clubs, call it what you will, started opening, I didn't pay real close attention right away. But I was getting the records because I was really into it by that time.
Right. What year was that? What would you say that year is?
That would have been like 72, 73.
Right. Great
But
time
I'm
to
going
get
to
records.
backtrack just a little. So I'm in the Sugar Shack one day with Sticker. He's writing up the liquor order, and we're in the back room. But in the front part where the club was, I hear some noise. I said, Sticker, what's that? He says, I don't really know. Go take a look. At the Sugar Shack, we had live acts. No disc jockey. Disc jockeys weren't heard of then, okay, as far as in a club. But we had a jukebox over in the corner, and there weren't no white records in it. So I see this guy, he's taking out records and putting in records. Because after a certain time, you know, they've kind of been played out.
Yep.
So I says to the guy, I says, hey, what are you doing? He says, well, I'm taking out the ones that have been kind of played out, and we're putting in new ones. I said, what do you do with the old ones? He goes, oh, we throw them away. We don't care about them anymore. He says, you don't throw them away anymore. I went and grabbed an empty box. I left it right behind the jukebox. I said, all the records go in that box from now on. Don't throw any out. It's okay. So now I started acquiring records. Now I'm getting 45s.
Right.
And I'm, you know, saying, geez, they take up less room. You know, you can get a couple hundred of them in a box. So now I started really paying attention to 45s.
Okay.
I just want to let people know
At that time, were you also starting to sell records to
No.
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 That was later on.
Yeah, that's
Much later
and
on.
that's like 5 or 6 years later.
Okay.
But I started.
And you were working.
I had a regular job. I worked at the Mass General.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Uh,
And so you would leave there, go back home, and then go
Yeah,
right
I'd
to the
go home,
club, or
you
would you
know.
go to the club from the work?
Yeah, I'd go to the shack.
Yeah.
I'd get to the shack like 8:30 or 9.
Oh, okay.
We never had, the doors opened at 8, but we never had any people.
Right.
But I'd hang out at the bar. I was talking to Sticker. I kind of could do whatever I wanted.
How many seats, how many people could fit into the
It
shack?
was small,
Yeah.
but it was a great club.
Yeah.
Because the entertainment was just the best.
Yeah.
If I had to guess, I'd say the Sugar Shack could probably only seat, I don't know, 200 people.
Right. So pretty small.
But it was a great setup. But there was many nights when there were 500 people in there, and there probably shouldn't have been. I'm sure there were a few nights. There might have been even a few more than 500.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah. Because every once in a while, you know, if a group had a hit and they were coming,
Stylistics or
couldn't
something like
get
that.
in the joint.
Yeah, yeah.
So we used to have to lock the door,
Yeah.
you know, and there'd be like a line up front or something like that. But I started acquiring records, and the next thing I know, I got more records. So what the hell's going on here? These things add up. So now I started. I met one of the guys, great guy. I can't remember his last name. His name is Tony. He was the manager and ran the door at Zelda.
Another club.
Zelda was one of the very early discos. Tiny, but great music. So he said to me one night, like around 3 in the morning, we're in the Eugene Ferry, and he says, Eddie, come up to the club some night. He said, you come in anytime you want. I said, you know, Tony, I says, I might just do that. I might take you up on that. Because, again, I was always at the shack.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going anywhere else.
Yeah.
But I said, let me go see what's going on here. I go up to the club. It's a Monday night. Because I went out every night. So I says, it's going to be quiet. I go in, sit at the bar, listen to what the DJ's playing, have a couple of beers. I sit down. There's this tall, thin kid in the booth. The booth, I'm not lying, was so small, you couldn't turn around in the booth. I said, that's a DJ? What the hell? I got more room in my bathroom. So this tall, thin kid's playing records, and I playing real good stuff. I knew it because I was getting this stuff, you know. I knew it if it was a group, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, I'm sitting there drinking my beer, and Mr. Paul Conley puts on Hypnotized by Linda Jones. I'll never forget this. In a club. I walked over, I looked at Paul Conley, and I pointed to the record because it was right in front of me, and I said, you play that song in here? Paul Conley gave me one of the greatest answers I've ever heard in my life. He looked right at me and said, you hear it, don't you? So I became friends. With this guy. And
it's a good answer.
Paul, that's a great answer. Yeah, I loved it. So I became friends with Paul. We became good friends. And then I started going to the few discos that were around at the time. I went to the Hampshire House to hear this kid named John Luongo play. And I'll tell you the truth, I wasn't impressed. Not at that time. He impressed me a little later. He was playing white stuff that was originally done by a black group. You know? So we had a little conversation about that, but I got to know him. And then as more clubs started opening, I was always at the clubs. Plus, I've always liked to dance. I was going down to the dances at St. Catherine's in Charlestown when I was 11, 12 years old. It's just something I like to do. So, as I got to know Paul Conley a lot better, Paul was playing at a place on the corner of Richmond Street and Atlantic Ave. It was called Cafe Felix. And I used to go. I went to other clubs. So he comes up to me one night. And at the time, dance contests were big in the clubs. You could go and win $250, $500 some nights in a club dancing in a contest. He says, he says, how would you like to play at the club? And I looked at him, I says, not really. And he says to me, well, you're going to start playing, I want you to play. And I says, all right, what's the deal, Paul? And he goes, well, me and Linda D, we want to get into some of the contests, and I'm already playing 4 nights. He says, I'm playing 5 nights. Carmen Scarpa, another great DJ, he was playing 2 nights. So he says, I'm going to take Tuesdays off. I want you to come and work. And Paul goes just like this, threw up his hands. He goes, don't worry. I already spoke to the manager. No one can tell you what to play. I says, well, that's good, Paul, because that's exactly the way it would be. How can I have someone telling me what to play when I know more about it than them? You know, it made a lot of sense.
Yeah, let's end the first. This can go on forever, and it will.
Yeah.
So this is part 1. We don't want to bore people. We're already past 20 minutes.
Oh,
so
wow.
It goes quick. So
I'm telling you, it did.
Let's end part 1, and we'll be back with part 2.
We will be back with part 2.
Thank you, Eddie B.
You're welcome, buddy.